Allison.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Okay, so we're all in court. I told you, I was like, I'm going to tell you what just happened. So I haven't put on makeup in I don't know how long. And I'm doing my hair. And you know how, like, if you haven't used your hairspray for a long time, that it can kind of get a little gunky and like shoot
Oh
in
yeah.
different directions? Okay? So I'm like done, and I have my face on, and my hair is, I'm like, yeah, looking all right. And I go to like do the last spray, and I kid you not, like it shot right into my eyeball, and I was like,
Oh
oh, oh, I'm like freaking out, and my husband's like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, I shot myself in the eye. He's just like, what's going on? So to explain if I'm a little blinky or if I just look like a little red eye, it's because I shot myself in the face with hairspray before I did this, because
no. Oh,
that's how my quarantine's going.
keeping it
Anyway,
real.
I
Keeping
had
it
to tell you
real.
the funny story, but I just want to say thank you so much. It's so good to see your face. And
I
I feel
know.
like
It's
I'm,
nice to
sitting
see you
right
too.
across from you having wine.
I haven't started drinking yet tonight, but probably as soon as we're off of this, I will pour myself my glass. Um,
I'm
it's,
I'm right
it's
there
become
with
a
you.
ritual at night.
Yeah, yeah, me too, me too. My husband's like, "What are we having
Yeah.
tonight?" And I was like, "Hmm." We actually just got some gin to make some TNTs, so
Oh, very
it,
nice. Very
it might be a
nice.
TNT night.
Anybody else started drinking already tonight? Let us know.
Probably, guys. Let us know
Let
what
us
you're
know what you're
drinking.
drinking in
Give
the
us some
comments.
recipes. Any recommendations? I'm all
Yes.
ears.
You guys will learn that Allison is hilarious and just so easy to talk to from this conversation. So this is gonna be
Giant
super
dork.
fun.
Giant dork. It's more like I'm easy to laugh. Yeah, I just like to make things fun and have fun in life. Yeah, that's why we get along.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm super excited to share some of your insight with everybody today. Like, I don't know if you guys watching have seen, but in the past, we've featured some of Allison's amazing DIY tutorials that she generously shared with us on the Budget Savvy Bride. And if you're not following her already, you should go to her Instagram profile and see all the beautiful floral inspiration at Bloom
thanks.
Culture Flowers.
Thanks,
So,
girl.
yeah. Yeah. So let's start, I guess, just by sharing a little bit about like your background and how you got started and
Awesome.
about bloom culture.
So I got my like really quick background. I started in pre-med, started over in my senior year of college in interior design. I got my interior design degree 5 years late. Well, and all throughout college, I worked as a floral assistant. So it's not just kind of out of thin air, but can you make the lower frame clearer, please? I don't know. Is it not clear?
Yeah,
Anyway,
I
I'm
think
reading
your
comments.
connection
Sorry,
might
guys.
be a little,
Oh no.
your connection might not be very strong because it is a little bit pixelated for me as well,
Oh,
but
I'm sorry. Well, do I need to move? I can totally move if I need to.
I don't know. Are
We can
you
just keep
close
going
to your
strong.
router? Let's
Um,
troubleshoot this.
okay. All right. I'm gonna just move. We're going outside, guys. That's what we're doing.
Oh, going
We're going
outside.
outside. Yeah, guys. Okay.
Thanks
So,
for letting us know that you guys
yeah,
were having issues.
yeah.
We
Thanks,
want you to be
guys.
able to.
This is where all the magic happens. That's my greenhouse.
Oh, it's so
Um,
pretty.
so I'm gonna just sit in my backyard talking to you guys. So I worked as a floral assistant all throughout college. Hopefully this is gonna be better. You're not gonna see like all my lawn things. Um, and then hopefully, is that any better at all?
I think it's a little bit better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Thanks, guys, for being patient with us. So, got into the corporate world, didn't love it. Started my first company, which is a local company in Oklahoma City, and in doing that, I just did weddings and events as the owner of my company and as a florist company, and I just kept getting all this feedback of like, oh my God, I could never do what you do. I could never do that. And I just wanted to call BS on the whole thing. So it was during the time when, and I guess they're still pretty popular, when workshops were popular and everybody and their dog was doing workshops. And so I decided to just have a community class. And I just started teaching anybody in the community that wanted to learn, that they didn't have access to the types of flowers that I have access to. They didn't have the confidence to try something in a new medium. And so this class was basically just about empowering people and giving them the tools, flowers and tools, things that they needed to actually be able to create like me. And I've always said this, even from, however many years ago. It started in 2014, but it's not rocket science. Like, you can follow a simple recipe, you can follow instruction. Like, they're flowers. People are always worried, like, what if I kill them? I'm like, just don't set them on fire, you'll be good. Like, it's not, you're gonna be fine. And so bloom culture evolved recently over the past 2 years into empowering DIY clients. I noticed that there was a market for it, and I have a business that's a full service florist. But I had clients that would come in and say, sometimes they couldn't afford it, and sometimes they didn't want to pay that much money, and I totally respect that. I'm a mom of 2 on a budget, and even when I didn't have children and when I was just getting married, we had a budget too. So I totally respect that. And I just saw that there was a market for people who were creative and empowered, or just needed a little bit more encouragement of, like, I think I can do this, but I'm not sure where to start. So that's where we kind of grew from.
Yeah, absolutely. I really think it's so amazing, like, how much you focus on really empowering people to get creative and, like, do things themselves, and to use this not just as a way to save money, but also to personalize their wedding and to express their creativity. And I know you've shared with me before about, like, having it be like a memory making experience and things like that. And so I love all of those aspects of DIYing flowers, and I just think you're a wealth of knowledge, and I'm excited for you to share some more of, like, your best tips and things like that with everybody who's kind of, like, considering, like, am I cut out for this? Like, can I take this on? So yeah, I'm excited. So let's get started just by, why don't you share a little bit about, like, what makes you so passionate about, like, DIY in particular?
What I'm passionate about DIY because there's a ton of reasons, but I think especially in America, in our culture, in the bridal culture, in the wedding culture, we're just told, like, you can't do it, you shouldn't do it, you don't want to do it. And you know what? I will be the first person to say that DIY is not for everybody, and I fully respect that. I have another business that is full service. I understand, that it's not for everyone. So this isn't a spiel to, like, bring you over to the DIY side. But if you're considering DIY, I think there are a lot of times that people hear horror stories, or they just really don't know where to start. So this is a guided approach, which I think is a fairly new concept of, like, I DIY, but you help me DIY. And so it's just one of those things that you're not a florist. You don't do this every day. I've done it for over 10 years, and I've kind of gotten it down to a science and to a formula, and I can share that with you. And I think one of the things is that the fear of the unknown. You want to do it. You think you can do it. You have the creativity, or not creativity. You just have the drive to do it, whether that's a budget pushing you or whatever reason it might be. I just really want to empower people by giving them the knowledge and the tools and answering their questions. I think that's the part where people get lost, is there's no direct answer. So you can fall down the Pinterest rabbit hole. You can Google until your eyes are red like mine. You can go all these different resources, but you're never truly going to get the solid answer of, like, is this what I need? Is this enough? Is this in season? And I think the biggest part of that, the part of the DIY that we have on our website, is a budget estimator, because I think the first thing that comes to mind is, well, what's your budget? And then people are like, I don't know. I don't know what my budget is. Whether you're going the traditional floristry route or a DIY route, I just think it's the maybe not the fear of the unknown, but just how overwhelming it can be. And we've just created a DIY guide, and you get to talk to a seasoned designer. You can talk to me, and so I think when you answer questions and you demystify it, it really truly empowers people. And then another aspect of it too is, and I'm not even sure, I feel like this has been coming for a while, and maybe due to the circumstances that we're all in right now. Maybe a push for a more simplified wedding, maybe a push for, people over the stuff. And not that the stuff's not important. I think it truly is, I really want it to be an amazing event, but it also doesn't have to cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And so
you are preaching. I'm like, preach, girl, preach.
I just want to give people options. And I think that that's the most empowering thing you can do for somebody is say, hey, here's some options. Why don't you decide what's best for you?
Absolutely. I think that's something that I strive to do as well at the Budget Savvy Bride. Obviously, not every money-saving tip is going to apply to your wedding. It's all going to depend on your personal situation or priorities or, what's important to you, what's in your wheelhouse in terms of DIY or not. But it's all about sharing options and sharing that there are ways to cut costs on every aspect of your wedding, no matter what, aspect we're talking about. And so, I think what you do is amazing. And I wanted to ask you a question actually about like the budget estimator. So like, how does that work? Do they tell you like how many bridesmaids they're going to have and it gives them an estimate?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
cool.
On the back end of it, we've got kind of a low end and a high end. So a range. It's not going to give you a specific budget, but it'll give you a range. You'll get in the ballpark. So you say, I need how many bouquets, how many every thing that you want. And the great thing about it is that you can kind of tweak it. You can say, I'm not sure, I think I'm doing this. And then a month later say, well, I'm definitely, it's just customizable, and it'll help you figure out where you even land within the DIY budget. So it's a range, like I said, but it's highly customizable. You can put in there pretty much any information that you might need for your wedding flowers, and it'll spit you out a budget. And some really exciting news is that we are currently working on our new website to empower people even more. So we're working on what I call Floral Menus. We're kind of going the food route where,
I'm like
a recipe,
menus.
It's recipe.
I like this.
It's like a cookbook, a DIY book, and so it's really approachable. We're even shooting it like you would shoot food. We're having lots of new color palettes that people can just go in and say, this is the color palette that I want. I need this size of bouquet. I need this many bridesmaids bouquet, so that they can really highly customize that and get an actual cost and check out and then get the guide and go. And so we're really trying to make it really easy, online, flowers delivered to your door. You assemble them, make memories. So all of that to say is the budget estimator, it just really demystifies, I think, the hardest thing that people are afraid to talk about or just don't know is the money aspect of it.
Right. Well, and I know anybody who's gone to a professional, obviously like florists are true artists. Like what they put together requires like lots of skill and like, like especially the larger scale stuff,
100%.
And things like that. And I have mad respect for it, but like it still is possible to have something really beautiful and do it yourself. And you're really empowering and helping people to do that.
I'm not going to be like, you know what, why don't you go do an 8-foot chandelier? I'd be like, maybe let's try something else. I'm not gonna say, yes, you can have the world, and it's just gonna happen. No, there's work involved, but that's a really beautiful part about it is that I think, and we've interviewed people that have DIY'd that didn't even use bloom culture before just to figure out their experience. And a lot of times it's just, we had so much fun and I created memories that I would have otherwise. And again, it's not for everybody. There's work involved, but it doesn't mean that it has to be laborious and awful. I mean, you get to work with beautiful, fresh flowers. And there's one aspect of it too, that some brides, like, they just kind of want the control and the creative control over that. And we're wanting to give you that control back. If you're nervous about how your bouquet is going to look, like, you get to tweak it and you get to make that, and you get to play with the color ratios. And, that's just such a fun and empowering thing to do. And one of my best pieces of feedback, or one of my best reviews, was people asked us who did the flowers and we got to say, I did.
That's cool.
And they were just like, what? I was like, yeah, girl.
Mind blown.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. And it's just, I think people have a misconception of what DIY has to look like. And we're here to blow that out of the water. It doesn't look like a possible stigma. It doesn't look like, it's not a one size fits all thing. And I don't think any wedding is. And we're here to empower people that we can help you figure out what size you want to fit your budget.
Awesome. So in terms of like somebody who's considering doing this, like, is there anything that you would say should, that someone would think of as like, oh, this probably isn't for me? Like what are some things that would come up for a couple that might say like, oh, maybe it's not for me?
Make sure you have helpers. Don't expect to do this. And again, depending on the size of the wedding that you're going to have, just make sure you have people that are in and really be upfront with them, saying like, don't just be like, hey, my bridesmaids are going to come over, and they show up and they think they're just going to have wine and a girls' night. And you're like, actually, we're doing our flowers. And they're like, what? I didn't sign up for that. Just make sure that people are on board and willing to help you. We're actually working on something right now to help you help them.
Oh,
In a
cool.
sense of how to communicate to your helpers, your crew. I say helper, but like your crew, your bridesmaids, your tribe, how to communicate to those people, how to delegate things, because you're not going to be able to do everything yourself, and that's okay. So I would say before it's like a hard yes or a hard no, like ask your people. And one of the things that I think is so underutilized during anybody's wedding is all of the people who want to help. Everybody is asking, how can I help you? What do you need? And the bride is typically like, I'm not sure. People, no, I've got it. Your bridesmaids, sometimes they've got it. I mean, most of the times that, whatever you might need, they'll take care of. But I think people love to be needed and love to be a helping hand. And this is such a beautiful way to incorporate people into your wedding and to give them a task and to give them a job and to make them feel meaningful. And I'm really passionate about that. And we want to create something that says, here's an easy way to communicate to those people. So A, make sure you've got your helpers. And B, I would just say, you got to have realistic expectations. I can teach you how to do pretty much anything, but it takes time. It does take time. And if you have 30 full-on centerpieces and 12 bridesmaids, and you want to have a ceremony installation, this might not be your route. If you like, we have a lot of Mexican American families, Spanish speaking families, that's kind of their culture. And they're like, girl, I have a bajillion cousins. And I'm like, okay, then you got this. So it's just really taking the temperature of your helpers and just making sure that your expectations are realistic for what you want for your wedding, because I don't want to stress you out. Nobody wants to stress you out. I want to empower you to do this. And for that to happen, you have to have people that are supporting you.
For sure. So in those cases when couples, might have like, a huge event that they're planning and they're, maybe in the future, not right now, obviously. But if they have, they need 30 centerpieces and all the bouquets and all of those things, like, would you maybe suggest doing like a hybrid, like maybe DIY some of them, or
100%. Or I think one thing with, I'm sorry, moving over so I can get a little bit closer to my router, is my spray paint over here. I say I'm a true DIYer, so I encourage people, but I also DIY a lot of stuff. So in that case, I think we did a post with you, didn't we, where there's different ways. Like you don't have to have flowers on every single table. And I think that's the great thing about talking with a seasoned florist, is we can help you with your budget. We can help you be really savvy with what you have and be intentional with what you have, and encourage you to use other items. I mean, I want to put flowers everywhere, but that's also not the wisest thing to do. And if you've got somebody, and the thing is that everybody's on a budget, whether it's $100,000 or $10,000 or $1,000, you've got a budget. And we just want to help steward that and to help you really make the most out of that. And that's the great thing, is when you talk to a consultant with Bloom Culture, is that we will literally talk through everything with you. It's not necessarily just, okay, so where do you want the flowers? It's like, how about this? And have you considered this? And it's really kind of a brainstorming session. And we really talk through the design of it. It's not just like, okay, well, how many vases do you want? Okay, well, what sizes are the, people don't know what size of vases they need. And so again, we talk through the design. We talk through how you want it to feel, what you want it to look like. And we're just, again, really realistic. If somebody has, 30 tables and they want centerpieces on all of those. It's a lot. But I also think as a designer that you want people to look around the room, and when they have the exact same thing on every single table, it can kind of land a little flat. And so if you get some height and some dimension, get some candles, have something that's low, have something that's more personal. If you have 30 tables, let's do 10 flowers on 10 tables, not 10 flowers, but 10 tables with flowers, 10 tables with candles, and maybe 10 tables with, something with like maybe bud vases and greenery. And so, that's how we will help you. We just break it down with you. And we're not just like, all right, how many do you want of this? How many do you want of that? Okay. I feel like, as you can tell, I'm a big nerd when it comes to flowers and design, but I'm just really passionate. And it's, in my opinion, it's not the biggest day of your life. It's one of them. And I want it to be amazing. I want it to be absolutely amazing right along with you. And so I think just, helping people make decisions. I think that's a hard thing to do for a wedding. A lot of times they're just kind of stuck. And so we can help you with that.
For sure. We've got a question here in the comments. It says, suggestions on how to approach a florist about partial DIY. Which items would be best to DIY in that case? And do you have suggestions to keep it cohesive if you do partial?
Yes. So we've worked with partial clients that just don't feel comfortable doing their bouquets or whatever it might be. So my suggestion is, if you are hiring a florist, I would be completely upfront with them. Be prepared for some pushback. That's just kind of the industry, and I understand it, but there is an aspect of that. But just let them know that you're going to be willing to work with them and that you're trying to make the best decisions for your wedding. You're not trying to hurt them. You may not say it like that. I'm not trying to hurt you, but you know what I mean. So I would say the things that I would have the florist do would be, like, if you're doing a floral installation, if you're doing an arbor, I would kick that to them, because those are typically things that need to be done on the day of the wedding. And other things, that you can DIY your bouquets, because those can be done a few days ahead of time. And I think people get kind of shocked, like, won't they die? Not at all. You want your wedding flowers to open and be relaxed and I say prancy, but it's not the same as retail floristry. Prancy. People are like, what are you talking about? I'm like, prancy flowers. But I would say delegate. You can delegate your bouquets, because sometimes people just don't feel comfortable with that and are like, I can do a centerpiece. I can do that. So it's really, you need to assess what you're comfortable with and what you're excited about, and then assess, maybe larger things. Like I said, if you're doing a ceremony piece, if you're doing large ceremony arrangements or urns that might need to be done, or that are just a scale that you might not be comfortable with. But, it's really what you're comfortable with. If you're like, what, we can totally do the centerpieces and have them do the bouquets and the ceremony. But I think personally, I would delegate some of the larger items if those are in your wedding. And if you can have a budget to do both, I think that's a wonderful kind of meeting in the middle.
Yeah, that's amazing. Great advice. So when it comes to, like, you're working with a couple, like, you're going to advise them not only on, like, how much to order, you're going to help them with the ordering process as well, right?
So I think this is a common misconception, and I think it's just our brand message isn't super clear. With Bloom Culture Flowers, you order your flowers through us. So our new website's going to come. That's going to be super crystal clear that, like, you come to us, we give you the flowers, we show you how to put it all together. So when you talk with us, if you decide to do a consultation with us, we will spit you out a proposal that says, here's everything that we talked about, here are the flowers that we propose, here's how many in recipe form, and here's how much it costs. So literally all you have to do is look through that and click purchase at the bottom of the proposal. So it's really laid out for you. It's very similar to how a traditional florist would approach, except they probably won't share their recipes with you. They'll probably just say, like, here's an idea, here's a journal, there's the secret, or specific flower varieties too. And the great thing about it is, if you want a specific color, you're not going to know what rose to order for that. And we know all that. So we can go through, and having my interior design degree and have practice in that, I'm really used to, and my floral design for over 10 years, I'm really used to sitting down and listening to a client's needs and then being able to spit out a design. And a lot of times people are like, you got it. And I didn't even know that's what I was going for. I'm like, I can pick up on subtle things. And when we talk about colors and things like that, you know, I want this, but I don't want it to be like a baby pink. I want it to be like a dusty pink. I know what Rose does that, you know, so
Blush and
that's,
bashful, pink and
yes,
pink.
yes, exactly.
Steel
Bubblegum, not so
magnolias.
much.
Anybody?
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, I cry every time. But that's the best part about talking with us, is that, you know, it's taking all of that guesswork out. You don't need to figure out how many flowers you need. We do that. You don't need to figure out what the varieties look best together. We do that. We give it to you and you can take a look at it. And if you want to edit it, that's great. Like most people do. Most people say, okay, I need to tweak this, or, you know, it's not like a complete overhaul, but I think that's just kind of the name of the game for any design related entity anyway. So yeah, it's highly customizable, and it's just really easy because it's easy to look at something and edit it. It's not as easy to generate that, especially starting from scratch.
Okay. So like that's the flowers, the actual blooms themselves. But what about like the supplies they're going to need? Because like what are
Right.
the DIY tools or supplies that they're going to need to put these arrangements together?
Not a lot.
Oh,
So
really?
I think people have a common misconception that like you need a cooler, you need to have this giant floristry space. Like you do need room to work. But I'd say the biggest things you're going to need are some buckets and trash cans and vases, like literally anything that holds water you can put flowers in. I use trash cans from the dollar store. I mean, again, I'm a DIYer, so we've got tons of buckets of, what is that called when you put it on the wall? Anyway, drywall. What is that? Anyway, just anything that I kind of save those things. Old vases. I mean, just ask around. A lot of times like my parents or people our parents' age will just have like a ton of vases. You're like, why do you have those? So I'd say buckets, snips, and then, you know, we will tell you if you need something special. You're going to need your vases. We'll help you select those if you need help with. We give you a size guide and say, you know, try to hit within this range.
Oh, so
And
helpful.
oh yeah, totally. We're working on a vase guide. You're like, what aren't you working on? Working on a lot. Working on a vase guide to
You're
help
doing
people
all the things,
understand all the
Allison.
things. I'm trying to, and raising two tiny humans. It's great. All of that to say is we tell you what supplies you need. So if you're doing an arbor piece, we say use this Oasis floral cage. Here's a link to it. Here's where you buy it. This is the specific one I'm talking about. You use 14-inch zip ties, use 11-inch zip ties. And so we give you on your recipe, if I say like make this, I will give you the supplies to make that. And so we have a full supplies list, but it kind of gets confusing because people are like, I don't know exactly what I need. So we've started doing in the recipes saying like, here's your recipe, here's the supplies for that. And it's surprisingly not a lot. I mean, you can use some floral tape, you need some ribbon and some pins. I think hopefully in the future, I would say like maybe, you know, 2 to 3 years down the road, we're going to start offering hard goods. So you can click on a link and it comes directly to us. So we can get you and say like, here's how much it will all cost, not just the flowers. So we will let you know what supplies you need to. And the supplies really aren't that expensive. I mean, you can get snips. The link that we have for snips are like $4, you know, so
Huh.
it's not extravagant.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I had some questions from like the
Yeah,
Facebook group and some questions that people had submitted on Instagram earlier this week that I wanted to toss at you before we run out of time. So one of the questions I had was Lydia said she's good with the arranging part, but she was curious, how do you fasten them and secure ribbon? Like, do you have any tips for things like that for like a bouquet?
totally. So traditionally you use what's called stem wrap or bouquet, just like there's a small like 1/4-inch waterproof tape that literally just looks like it's like a tiny duct tape. You could legit use duct tape, but I digress. Zip ties. So zip ties, if you want to bind your bouquets, the easiest way to do that is zip ties, because you don't have to cinch it complete, like as hard as you can. You can cinch it just loose enough, and then you can kind of tweak your bouquet and kind of push and pull things and move things around, and then cinch it just a little bit to where it's secure. You don't want to strangle your stems. And then just snip off the excess of that. And then it's so easy. You don't have to worry about wrapping it and it moving around and you holding it. And then the ribbon, I mean, it's super easy. You just wrap it around that and then use, they're called boutonniere pins, but you can just get pins with like a little pearl head on the tip of it, and then just angle those in. I talk a lot with my hands, so you're probably like, what is this? Is she sign language? No, and definitely not. But it's really easy just to bind your bouquets. I would say zip ties, ribbon, and a pin or two. You don't have to have, I mean, a lot of people think that you have to have like the whole stem lined with those pearl pins. It's just a few will do. And
yeah,
if
kind of
you
depends
have,
on the look you're going for, I guess.
totally.
Right?
And that's a little bit more traditional. If you want to have flowy ribbons, you can just cut the length that you want and just pin them right in. And what's really great is that you can take those off if you want, or put them, pin them back on. So again, options, but I would say, take a look at we did a flat lay bridesmaids bouquet tutorial, and it shows you exactly how to bind those things. And it's super easy.
I think the zip tie tip is like A+.
I think that's probably the only reason why I became a florist, is I was like, oh, we can use zip ties. I mean, I use them all the time,
Amazing.
all the time. Surprisingly, amazing. Zip ties have saved my life.
Okay. Another question we had was, this bride is considering growing her own flowers, but wants to know how far in advance should she order backups if things don't bloom in time? Like order backup floral. So what's like the lead time on ordering flowers, I guess?
Lead time on ordering flowers, I would say, is a minimum of 2 weeks. So you, like, if you're kind of in the oh crap moment of like, this isn't going to work, I'd say like, you're probably going to know a lot longer than 2 weeks beforehand, but I would say minimum time, especially if you're ordering any specific flowers, I would say 2 weeks. We have our ordering, because we service nationwide, we have a 3-week lead time, only because I need to make sure that I've got that order in, because we've got so many other orders happening at the same time. It's just kind of to cover our busy schedules. And so, but I would say the drop dead moment would be no later than 2 weeks.
Cool. That's probably helpful to know too, for folks who are maybe having to pivot their plans right now and are going to do like an at-home thing. So if you've got, between 2 to 3 weeks, like, hit Alison up and maybe she can help you get some flowers if you need to figure out like a last minute solution. Yeah,
flowers are a little bit iffy right now, but a lot of wholesalers have started to open back up for what was I going to say, for like shipping, which we ship nationwide. So I mean, that's easy. We could ship it to you.
Awesome. So another question was from Kathleen in our Facebook group. She said, any tips for keeping flowers fresh between making arrangements and transporting them to the venue?
100%. This is a question we get a lot. Keep them in a cool, dry place. You make sure that they're in water. That's about it. If they're good quality product, if it's fresh flowers from a wholesaler, they will be fresh, and they need that time. They need that time to open up and to relax. You don't want like a really tight bloom. You want it to relax and open up. So it needs that time. We always suggest that our clients receive their flowers 3 days ahead of time. And a lot of people are like, oh God, how are they going to stay alive? They're fresh. They need that time to open up and to be handled and to relax. So my tip is just to keep it in water, make sure it's hydrated, make sure the water is clean. Don't put it in any really warm spaces. So I'd say if you're comfortable, they're going to be comfortable. Not in direct sunlight, not in, if it's near an air return and it's just got air blowing on it, that's not great, because it could kind of bruise petals and things like that. For transportation, again, just try to keep them cool. The hot months are probably the most worrisome months, because as a professional florist, that's hard for me too. But keep them as cool as you possibly can, not in a cooler, because a lot of times what people don't realize too is that flowers can experience shock. So they can go from a really cool setting of a cooler and then be set outside and then wilt instantly, just because that temperature change is so quick and they haven't had time to acclimate to it. So the transportation, again, just keep it in the shade, keep it in your car, keep the air conditioner on. It's going to be really rare that something just gives out unless it's not a fresh product. And that can sometimes happen too.
Very, very good advice. I saw another question roll in through the comments while we were chatting. Says, I want to do hydrangeas with maybe roses, but I know hydrangeas wilt easily. What are the best ways to keep them from wilting between setup and the day of? I guess that's kind of along the same lines, right?
Hydration.
But those delicate flowers are extra tricky, right?
Yeah, hydrangeas, they've been a tricky flower for me, even as a professional. And I sometimes, when I get it from the wholesaler, sometimes I'm not quite sure how long it's been there. If it's kind of just, I get it and the next day it's just kind of dead. There are some troubleshooting tips that if it does start to wilt, cut the stem a little bit higher than you had it. Put it in some warm water to help open the pores of the stem, and to help it really hydrate. You can do what's called like a flash hydrate, where you can just get a bucket of cold water and submerge the hydrangea that way. So that way it can hydrate through the petals. But a lot of times people think like, oh, it's wilted, it's gone. A lot of times I just cut the stem and put it in fresh water and it'll perk right back up. If you're using it in foam, I would dip it in alum. You can get that at any grocery store. I think it's kind of like a sugary substance. I'm actually 100% not sure what alum is, but you can get it. It's totally safe to use. I'm talking about it. You can just dip the stem in alum, and that, I think, is kind of like an injection of food, or kind of like what we would call a quick dip.
Yeah, like sometimes when you buy flowers at the grocery store, they give you like the little packet of stuff. Yeah. Is that kind of like what you're talking about? Or
I'm
similar,
not
maybe?
Sure. I think flower food, I think it might be a component in them. To be quite honest with you, it's just one of those things that I never really asked about. It was just something that people would be like, have you tried alum? And I was like, no. And I did it one time and it worked. So here I am just kind of talking about it. But you might try it. I need to look into the science behind that for sure.
No, that's cool. It's good advice. I do think that those like more delicate flowers are definitely tricky, and it's definitely good to know in case anybody has issues with those. So those are the last questions that I saw in the feed, and then I think I had one or two in the question box here. Let me see. You mentioned this one. How far in advance can fresh arrangements be made? Do they need refrigeration?
You can make your fresh arrangements 2 to 3 days ahead of time. Again, keeping them in a cool, dry place. I say when you get your flowers, especially if you had them shipped to you, you need to let them hydrate overnight. That's not a requirement, but it really does help. I would say at least let them hydrate 1 to 2 hours before you start working with them. Again, hydration is key to the longevity and to the pranciness of your flowers. You can do arrangements like we do dedicated timelines. And so we'll say, hey, to be done by this point, start here. This is how long it's supposed to take you. With your bouquets, they can be in water. With your centerpieces, they can be in water. Other pieces like the ceremony, if it's not a large arrangement, if it's an arbor, keep your flowers in water until you're ready to do it. And no, refrigeration is not necessary. I have been a wedding florist for over 10 years now. I got rid of my cooler 4 or 5 years ago. I just wasn't using it because I wanted my flowers to open up, and I needed them to open up. Now there are some other flowers like a peony that's called blowing out, when they just open really, really quickly. So peonies you might just put in your refrigerator. A lot of times people will talk about cross-contamination and humidity of refrigerators, but it's not going to live in there for weeks like you would need, not weeks, but for days like you would need a retail floral designer would. So I haven't used refrigeration. I've just kept it nice and cool. I keep it, around 70, and if you're comfortable, they're going to be comfortable. And like I said, we talk through on consultations, about, okay, well, this is kind of a tricky flower. Here's how to troubleshoot that, so on and so forth. So yeah, you don't need refrigeration. I haven't been using it for years, and you can do these a few days ahead of time if you're keeping them hydrated.
I think that's great. And I think it also would give a lot of, brides peace of mind, and, knowing they don't have to have like a ton of fancy equipment or storage or anything like that to be able to receive the flowers and prep them properly and arrange them for their wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And I know from the way you guys work, like you really outline everything and give them all the information they need and try to educate them on every step of the process. So it's going to make it super simple and easy to follow. And I just love it. I wish I had been around back when I did all that stuff, but I think it's super valuable what you offer to your brides. So yeah.
Thanks. Thanks, girl.
I know we've kind of run a little bit over. Usually we only go for about 30 minutes.
I talk a lot, you know this.
Well, I could talk to you all day, but I'm sure if anybody else has any questions, like feel free to pop them in, but we'll probably wrap up here in a second.
Also, feel free to email me too if you have any DIY questions. I am an open book. You know, let me know.
Here's a question. How can you use dried Australian natural gum tree flowers? Do you know anything about that?
I'm not familiar with natural gum tree flowers, but if they're dried, I would say just use them like you would a silk flower or a faux flower. I mean, dried and dyed flowers and greenery are really, really trendy and really popular right now. So, I mean, yeah. I weave dried flowers into bouquets all the time. And so I would say just, it doesn't need to be in water if it's dried. So if you're using it with fresh flowers, I mean, just make sure that the stem stays clean. And if you're using it just as a dried flower with other dried components, girl, you've got it made. You don't have to do really anything to it. Just arrange and have fun. It doesn't need to have temperature control or hydration or anything like that. So you can even do those in like really far in advance.
Very cool. I'll have to look that up. I'm curious.
I know, me too. I'm like, I hope I'm not speaking really like, they're like, what is this person saying? I'm like, I'm in Oklahoma. I'm sorry.
Not familiar with the flora of Australia, to be honest. But
I've backpacked but I'm not sure what the natural gum tree flowers are. So I'll look into that.
That's very, very cool. Well, if you guys have any more questions for Alison, you can visit her on Instagram at Bloom Culture Flowers or visit her website, bloomcultureflowers.com. But thanks everybody for being here. This was super fun. And I've been doing these Instagram lives every Wednesday, just as a way to keep myself a little bit sane during this time. And next week, I'm actually going to have like a personal finance expert on. So stay tuned for that. I know a lot of people have money questions. Yes. So
I'll probably tune in.
Yeah, tune in.
Love it.
Thank you so much, Alison, for joining me. This was super fun.
Thank you for having me.
I always love talking to you. So
you too.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.